Most women are never taught what truly leaves a lasting impression on a man's heart. They grow up believing it's about being the most beautiful woman in the room, having the perfect sense of humor, an unforgettable personality, or an exciting life that looks impressive online. But those things are rarely what stay with him. The women who genuinely touch a man's heart in a way he can't easily explain usually do something far more subtle. Hours later, he finds himself replaying the interaction in his mind, wondering why he can't stop thinking about her. The reason isn't something obvious. It's usually a small, effortless action that carries far more emotional weight than most people realize. These women understand the quiet power of meaningful gestures. They don't rely on dramatic displays or elaborate romantic moments. Instead, they create simple experiences that reach a place inside him he didn't expect anyone to reach. And once that feeling is there, it becomes incredibly difficult for him to forget. What makes this even more surprising is that very few women intentionally use these gestures. It isn't because they're complicated or require some special talent. Anyone can do them. The real reason is that hardly anyone explains how much influence these little moments actually have. Most people never connect a brief glance, a gentle touch, or a thoughtful action with the fact that a man continues thinking about a woman days after seeing her. Those tiny moments often become the emotional memories that quietly stay with him long after the conversation has ended. In this video from the Relationship Decoder, you'll discover exactly why these seemingly ordinary actions create such a powerful emotional response. Once you understand the psychology behind them, you'll begin noticing how the smallest expressions of warmth and presence can have a much greater impact than grand romantic efforts ever could. We're going to explore 7 simple gestures, one at a time, and uncover why each one affects a man on such a deep emotional level. More importantly, you'll learn how to let these moments happen naturally instead of forcing them, because genuine connection always feels more powerful than rehearsed behavior. By the time you've reached the end, you'll understand something that many women spend years trying to figure out without ever fully grasping. These aren't secret tricks or manipulation techniques. They're natural expressions of emotional connection that speak directly to a man's heart in ways words often cannot. When you understand how these quiet moments work, you'll realize why some women leave unforgettable impressions without ever trying to be the loudest, funniest, or most attention-grabbing person in the room. One thing many people misunderstand is that men experience emotions much more deeply than they usually reveal. They may not always express what they're feeling, but that doesn't mean those feelings aren't there. A man rarely falls for someone simply because she impressed him with clever conversation or because she looked stunning during one particular evening. What truly captures him is the emotional experience she created in a specific moment. More often than not, that defining moment isn't dramatic at all. It isn't a perfectly planned conversation or a carefully prepared romantic gesture. It's something incredibly small, a lingering glance, a gentle touch lasting only a second or two, a comfortable silence that somehow says more than words ever could. Before he's even consciously aware of what's happening, his mind has already absorbed those subtle signals and attached meaning to them. This isn't just a romantic idea, it's rooted in the way human beings naturally respond to one another. Our brains and nervous systems constantly notice tiny emotional cues long before our conscious thoughts catch up. That's why a man may suddenly realize he can't stop thinking about someone without being able to explain exactly why. The explanation often isn't hidden in a dramatic event, but in one quiet interaction that made him feel understood, safe, appreciated, or emotionally connected. His subconscious recognized something meaningful before his logical mind had time to analyze it. By the time he tells himself there's just something different about her, that feeling has already been forming beneath the surface. And in many cases, it all began because of one simple gesture that seemed ordinary in the moment but quietly left a lasting mark on his heart. One of the most powerful gestures is something so simple that most people never realize how meaningful it can be: a slow, genuine smile. This isn't the bright, perfectly posed smile people use for photos or to make a good impression. It's the kind of smile that appears naturally, beginning softly in your eyes before it gradually reaches your lips. It happens when you're genuinely enjoying the moment or quietly touched by something he just said. There's no rush, no performance, and no effort to impress. Instead, it feels warm, sincere, and completely unforced. To a man, that kind of smile carries a message that words often fail to express. It tells him that he created a real emotional reaction, that his presence made you feel comfortable, and that your happiness in that moment was authentic. Those are the kinds of moments that stay in his memory long after the conversation ends. Another gesture that quietly creates a strong emotional impact is leaning in slightly while he's speaking. It doesn't need to be dramatic or exaggerated. A small natural movement forward is enough to show that you're fully present and genuinely interested in what he's sharing. In a world where people are often distracted or only half listening, this simple action makes a man feel heard and valued. It tells him that at that moment your attention is completely on him and that his thoughts matter. That feeling of being truly listened to is surprisingly rare, which is why it leaves such a lasting impression. Rather than interrupting or waiting for your turn to speak, your body language quietly reassures him that he's worth your time and attention. That subtle expression of interest builds emotional closeness in a way that words alone often cannot. Another surprisingly meaningful gesture is simply saying his name during conversation, not repeatedly or in a way that feels forced, but naturally at moments where it fits. Hearing his own name from someone he likes creates a subtle sense of closeness and personal connection. It reminds him that you're not just talking to anyone, you're speaking directly to him. That small detail makes him feel recognized as an individual rather than just another face in the crowd. It signals that your attention is personal, intentional, and genuine. In everyday conversations, people often overlook this simple habit, yet it quietly strengthens emotional connection without either person realizing it. When his name is spoken with warmth and sincerity, it leaves him feeling valued, noticed, and appreciated. Those small moments of personal recognition often linger in his mind far longer than compliments or carefully chosen words ever do. One of the strongest ways to make a man feel emotionally connected is by remembering a small detail he casually shared in an earlier conversation. It doesn't have to be something important or life-changing. It could be his favorite coffee, a hobby he enjoys, an upcoming meeting, or a story about his childhood. When you naturally mention it later, it shows that you weren't just hearing his words, you were genuinely paying attention. That simple act tells him that what he says has value and that he occupies a meaningful place in your thoughts. In a world where many conversations are quickly forgotten, being remembered in this way feels incredibly personal. It creates a sense of appreciation that can't be faked because it reflects genuine interest rather than politeness. Often, it's these thoughtful moments that quietly build trust, deepen emotional connection, and make him feel truly important in your life. A brief, natural touch can create a surprisingly strong emotional impression when it happens at the right moment. It isn't about holding on for too long or making the interaction feel overly intimate. Instead, it's a soft touch on his arm or shoulder while you're laughing together or emphasizing something meaningful, followed by naturally pulling your hand away. Because the moment is so short, it feels genuine rather than planned. That quick gesture communicates warmth, comfort, and ease without saying a single word. It shows that you feel relaxed in his presence, while still respecting personal space. The fact that it ends almost as quickly as it begins makes it even more memorable, leaving behind a subtle emotional connection instead of overwhelming the moment. Often, it's this balance of closeness and restraint that stays with him, quietly making him look forward to spending more time with you. One of the most overlooked yet powerful gestures is being completely comfortable with moments of silence. Many people feel pressured to keep every conversation going, filling every pause with more words because they worry that silence means something is wrong. But when you can simply enjoy the quiet without becoming uncomfortable, it sends a very different message. It shows confidence, emotional security, and a genuine sense of ease in his presence. Instead of feeling like he has to entertain you or constantly think of the next thing to say, he experiences a calm connection that feels natural and effortless. Those peaceful pauses give both of you space to simply enjoy being together without any pressure. Ironically, some of the deepest emotional bonds are built not through endless conversation, but through shared moments where neither person feels the need to speak because the connection already says enough. The final gesture isn't something you say or do with your hands. It's something you communicate through your expression. Looking at him with quiet admiration can have a deeper impact than a dozen spoken compliments. It's the kind of look that gently says, "I notice who you are, and I appreciate what I see." It isn't about putting him on a pedestal or praising every little thing he does. Instead, it's a sincere expression of respect for his character, his efforts, or the person he's becoming. When a man feels genuinely respected, rather than simply admired for appearances or achievements, it reaches a much deeper emotional level. That kind of acceptance inspires him to become an even better version of himself, not because he feels pressured, but because he naturally wants to live up to the confidence and belief he sees reflected in your eyes. Sometimes, one authentic look can communicate more than an entire conversation ever could. What makes these 7 gestures so meaningful is that they are never meant to be used as tricks or carefully planned strategies. They lose their impact the moment they become performances. If your actions don't match what you genuinely feel, most people can sense that disconnect, even if they can't explain it. A man is far more likely to respond to authenticity than to perfectly rehearsed behavior. These gestures only carry real emotional weight when they arise naturally from honest interest, kindness, and being fully present with him. When you're truly listening, enjoying the conversation, and allowing yourself to connect without pretending to be someone else, these moments happen effortlessly. That's what makes them unforgettable. In the end, the difference isn't between the woman who knows the right things to do and the one who doesn't. It's the difference between someone who briefly captures a man's attention and someone whose genuine presence quietly earns a lasting place in his heart. The reason these quiet moments have such a lasting effect is because people rarely remember every word that was spoken, but they almost always remember how someone made them feel. Long after the conversation ends, the emotional experience remains. That is why genuine connection can never be replaced by perfect lines or carefully planned behavior. When someone feels emotionally safe around you, their mind naturally associates your presence with comfort, acceptance, and peace. Over time, those feelings become stronger than physical attraction alone because emotional memories tend to stay with us much longer than surface-level impressions. This is why 2 people can spend the same amount of time together, yet one becomes unforgettable while the other slowly fades from memory. The difference is often found in the emotional atmosphere they created, rather than anything dramatic they said or did. There is also something important to understand about emotional presence. Being fully present doesn't mean trying to impress someone or constantly searching for the perfect response. It means giving your complete attention to the moment without being distracted by how you are being perceived. People naturally sense when someone is genuinely interested versus when they are simply waiting for their turn to speak. That quiet attentiveness creates a feeling of being understood, and that feeling is surprisingly rare. In today's fast-moving world, where conversations are often interrupted by phones, notifications, and wandering attention, offering someone your undivided presence becomes an unexpected gift. It quietly communicates respect, curiosity, and emotional maturity without requiring a single explanation. Many lasting relationships are built through these repeated small moments, rather than through one grand romantic event. Movies often make it seem as though love grows because of dramatic declarations or unforgettable surprises, but real emotional attachment usually develops much more quietly. It grows through consistency, familiarity, and the comfort of knowing that someone genuinely notices you. Each thoughtful interaction becomes another layer of trust until eventually that person begins to feel emotionally significant. This process happens so gradually that most people don't even recognize it while it's unfolding. Looking back, they simply realize that one person slowly became an important part of their emotional world without any single defining moment that explains why. Perhaps the most important truth is that authenticity can never be convincingly imitated. Real warmth has a different energy than rehearsed charm, and genuine interest feels different from calculated attention. People instinctively notice these differences, even when they cannot put them into words. That's why the strongest connections are never created by memorizing techniques. They grow from sincerity, emotional confidence, and the willingness to let another person experience the real version of you. when your words, expressions, and actions naturally reflect what you truly feel. There is no need to force chemistry. Connection develops on its own because authenticity creates trust, and trust is the foundation on which lasting attraction and emotional intimacy are built. What often surprises people is that emotional attraction doesn't usually happen all at once. It builds quietly beneath the surface through a series of positive experiences that make someone feel relaxed, appreciated, and emotionally understood. A person may leave a conversation thinking it was ordinary, only to find themselves remembering it hours later. They replay certain moments, not because anything extraordinary happened, but because something about the interaction felt different. The brain naturally returns to experiences that create emotional comfort, and over time, those memories become stronger. That is why genuine connection often grows long before either person consciously realizes what is happening. Feelings don't always arrive with certainty. Sometimes they begin as a quiet sense that being around someone simply feels right. This is also why confidence should never be confused with trying to appear perfect. Real confidence isn't about always knowing the right thing to say or constantly trying to impress someone. It comes from being comfortable with who you are and allowing conversations to unfold naturally. When someone isn't desperately seeking approval, they create an atmosphere where both people can relax and be themselves. That emotional ease is incredibly attractive because it removes pressure from the interaction. Instead of wondering how to perform or what impression they're making, both people become free to enjoy the moment. Ironically, the less someone tries to force a connection, the more authentic and memorable that connection often becomes. Another reason these small gestures matter so much is because they satisfy emotional needs that nearly everyone carries, even if they rarely admit it. Every person wants to feel noticed, respected, appreciated, and accepted for who they are. Those needs don't disappear with age or experience. They simply become less openly expressed. When someone consistently creates moments where another person feels understood without judgment, those experiences leave a lasting emotional imprint. It isn't because the gestures themselves are magical, it's because they quietly communicate something every heart longs to hear. You matter, I notice you, I enjoy being here with you. Those messages are rarely spoken directly, yet they are often felt more deeply than compliments or romantic declarations. In the end, lasting attraction is rarely built on excitement alone. Excitement comes and goes, but emotional safety creates stability. When someone feels they can relax around you, express themselves honestly, and know they will be met with warmth instead of criticism or pressure, the relationship begins to develop a much stronger foundation. That sense of emotional security encourages openness, vulnerability, and trust, which are the qualities that allow real intimacy to grow over time. The strongest relationships are not usually the loudest or the most dramatic. They are the ones where two people consistently make each other feel seen, respected, and emotionally at home. Those quiet experiences become the memories that stay with someone long after the conversation, the date, or even the day has ended. There is another reason these moments leave such a deep impression. Human beings naturally assign meaning to experiences that make them feel something genuine. A man may not immediately understand why one woman stays on his mind while others fade into the background, but his emotions are already putting the pieces together. His mind begins connecting her presence with feelings of comfort, appreciation, and emotional peace. That connection doesn't happen because she tried harder than everyone else. It happens because she created an experience that felt real. When someone consistently leaves you feeling calmer, happier, or more understood than before, your brain starts looking forward to seeing them again. Over time, that anticipation becomes emotional attachment, and emotional attachment is far stronger than simple curiosity or physical attraction. It's also worth remembering that people rarely open their hearts because they were convinced through logic. They open their hearts because they gradually begin to feel safe. Emotional safety doesn't mean life is perfect or that disagreements never happen. It means both people feel accepted without constantly worrying about being judged, criticized, or misunderstood. When someone feels emotionally safe, they naturally become more honest, more expressive, and more willing to share the parts of themselves they normally keep hidden. That's when relationships move beyond surface-level attraction and begin developing real emotional depth. Trust is not created through one unforgettable conversation. It is built through dozens of small interactions where each person consistently proves they are present, dependable, and emotionally available. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that attraction is something they have to manufacture. In reality, genuine attraction grows when people stop trying so hard to create it. The more relaxed and authentic someone becomes, the easier it is for others to experience who they truly are. Pretending to be perfect often creates distance because perfection feels difficult to relate to. Authenticity, on the other hand, gives the other person permission to be authentic as well. That mutual honesty creates a connection that feels effortless instead of exhausting. Rather than constantly wondering whether they're saying the right thing, both people begin enjoying each other's company without feeling the need to perform, and that sense of ease becomes one of the strongest foundations for lasting attraction. At the heart of every meaningful relationship is a simple truth that never changes. People don't stay because every moment is exciting or because every conversation is flawless. They stay because being with that person consistently feels better than being without them. They know they will be listened to, respected, and appreciated for who they are instead of who they pretend to be. That emotional consistency creates a bond that becomes stronger with time because it isn't built on temporary excitement, it's built on trust, sincerity, and countless small moments that quietly remind both people they are valued. In the end, those ordinary moments become the extraordinary reason two people continue choosing each other again and again. The beautiful thing about genuine connection is that it can never be rushed. Feelings develop at their own pace because trust grows through repeated experiences, not instant promises. Every sincere conversation, every thoughtful gesture, and every moment of quiet understanding becomes another piece of the emotional foundation between two people. At first, those moments may seem ordinary, almost too small to matter, but when they happen consistently, they begin changing the way someone feels in your presence. They stop seeing you as just another person they enjoy talking to and begin associating you with comfort, peace, and emotional stability. That shift is often so gradual that neither person notices it happening until one day they realize that life simply feels better whenever the other person is around. Another important truth is that people are naturally drawn to those who make them feel accepted instead of evaluated. When someone constantly feels they have to prove themselves, conversations become exhausting rather than enjoyable. But when they know they can speak freely, laugh without embarrassment, admit mistakes, or simply be quiet without feeling awkward, they begin to relax on a much deeper level. That emotional freedom creates an environment where vulnerability becomes possible. And vulnerability is where genuine intimacy begins. It isn't created by sharing every secret immediately. It develops little by little, as each person learns that they can reveal more of themselves without fear of rejection or criticism. That growing sense of acceptance becomes one of the strongest reasons people choose to stay emotionally invested. Many people spend years searching for the perfect words that will make someone fall in love, yet lasting attraction has never depended on perfect conversations. It's found in consistency. It's found in showing up with the same warmth, respect, and authenticity over time. Anyone can create excitement for a single evening, but very few people create the kind of emotional reliability that makes someone feel at home. Reliability may not sound glamorous, but it's one of the most attractive qualities a person can have. Knowing that someone will respond with kindness, honesty, and emotional maturity creates a level of trust that excitement alone can never replace. Over time, that steady emotional presence becomes far more valuable than temporary sparks or dramatic moments. Perhaps that's why the strongest relationships often look surprisingly ordinary from the outside. There aren't constant grand gestures or endless displays of romance. Instead, there are countless small moments of understanding that most people would overlook. A thoughtful glance, genuine curiosity, patient listening, shared laughter, comfortable silence, and quiet encouragement slowly become the language of the relationship. None of these moments seem extraordinary on their own, yet together they create something incredibly rare, a connection where both people feel emotionally seen, emotionally safe, and deeply appreciated. And when someone experiences that kind of connection, it becomes incredibly difficult to forget, because what they remember isn't just what happened, they remember how they felt every time they were with you.